Marriage is a beautiful gift, a gift from God that He gives to us to have intimacy, because our lives are meant to have intimacy one with another. Marriage done right is a wonderful thing. Marriage done wrong is not so good. But we all have the capability to do marriage right, and sometimes what it takes to do marriage right is to stay with it, to not give up, to not quit even when it gets hard. And I want to share with you a story today of a marriage that was very difficult, very hard. As a matter of fact, they couldn't be together. But it's the love that God gives us to love another, the power that we have to stay together if we try. In the early 1970s, there was a woman named Irina, and Irina lived in Moscow. She worked for a place called the Institute of World Economy and International Relationships. And it was a government office. There was a guy named Woodford. Woodford's from America. He was a professor. And Woodford happened to be in Russia working at that time. And as a professor doing some work with Russia, he had a visa to live there, and Woodford and Irina met and fell in love. They began to date while they were there, and 2 years later, in May of 1974, Irina and Woodford got married, and it was a beautiful marriage. For them, it was a relationship they both dreamed of and always wanted. But life happens when you're busy living, and something took place. Woodford's visa ran out, and so he had to leave. He couldn't stay in Russia. He applied for an extended visa, but the government wouldn't give it to him. At that time, it was the Cold War. Things were going on between America and Russia that weren't good. And so Woodford had to leave. So Irina said, well, that's okay. I'll apply to leave the country. And but her country wouldn't give her a visa to leave. And so she had to stay in Russia. He had to go back to America. There was cards, there was letters, there was pictures that were sent way back in the day before anything with the internet and instant messaging. You just didn't have that. And so here you have two loves, two hearts that are stranded on different sides of the world and different continents. And for 11 years, I want you to think about that. For 11 years, Irina and Woodford could not be together. They could not share their love. They went literally from May to August. That's as long as they were together, married. They had dated for 2 years, and then May to August. And then in August, he had to come back to America. In 11 years, they corresponded. They tried different avenues to be together, but they never held hands, kissed, anything for 11 years. Married for almost just short of 11 and a half years. But for 11 of those years, they were separate. Till finally one day, Irina got the green light. She was allowed to leave. Paperwork went through and everything was okay. So in January of 1986, she flew out, and she flew to the Baltimore-Washington International Airport. And reporters were there to capture the special moment as she came off the plane. They saw each other for the first time in 11 years, face to face, held and kissed and cried. Reporters that were there captured a very touching reunion that was beautiful. And Irina would go on and write a memoir about it. It's called Of Love in Russia, the 11-year fight for my husband and freedom. Do you have that in you? To fight for 11 years for a marriage that you've barely ever had. There's people who have been together for 10, 20, 30 years, never been apart, and won't fight anymore. Marriage is sacred. Marriage is something that God gave between a man and a woman. It's not something that just because everybody else forgets the marriage ceremony and just decides to start living together, that doesn't make it right. God created marriage with a purpose and a plan. Done right, it's wonderful. Done wrong, it's not. And just because it's acceptable, in some people's eyes doesn't mean it's acceptable to God's. We have to do marriage God's way. The Bible tells us in the book of Matthew, chapter 19, starting in verse 4, it says that Jesus answered the people he was with, and he said, "Have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female? And said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, let not man separate." When God has a man and a woman come together in a place of marriage and intimacy, it's something He ordained. That it would never be split apart, broke up. That as I performed even a wedding just yesterday, in the vows, you say the vows for richer or for poor, in sickness and in health, forsaking all others until death do us part. That literally, if I'm on a whole nother nation and I can't get to you, if we have no money, or if we have lots of money and lots of temptations that go with it, it doesn't matter what our situations are. The sickness and health, some need to revisit that. Just because there's dementia, just because there's sickness, does that mean we can just separate? I'm not saying marriage is easy, and I'm not saying covenant is easy. Covenant's very hard, but covenant is worth it, because covenant love between a man and a woman is the richest and deepest loves that's out there. I want to encourage you in your marriage. I don't know what your marriage is like. You may not even be married. But for those that are married, do marriage right. Do it God's way. What God has brought together, you and your spouse, as you have come together, don't let anything separate that. Don't let anything come between you and keep the marriage fires from burning. My wife and I married for 21 years and almost had a divorce in our first year and a half. We were 4 days away from a divorce. It was difficult. It was hard. But we rebuilt our marriage. That today, my wife and I are best friends. We talk to each other. Yes, we fight, but we've learned, in the words of Ruth Graham, we've learned how to fight fair. We've learned, we're trying to do marriage right. Honor your marital vows. Be married. Celebrate your marriage. Learn to date again. Learn to laugh again. Learn to make your spouse your best friend. Learn to live in such a way that if the man is trying with everything he has to please the woman in a way that means something to the woman, and the woman at the same time is giving everything she has to please the man in a way that meets the needs of the man, you're so busy out competing each other with love, you won't have time to fight. I pray that you have a good week this week. I pray that you take time to spend some time with your spouse and learn to do marriage right. God bless you. I love you. Have a great week.